This episode is brought to you by my bookkeeping strategy sessions. If you own a business, then you're probably in one of these three areas when it comes to your bookkeeping: DIY, outsourcing, or understanding. DIY being just you want to know what to do, you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, it's all brand new to you, and you just need a little bit of guidance. Number two, outsourcing. You've done it, you hate it, you're ready to get it off your plate, but how do you find somebody, and what should they be doing, and what should you be doing, and what should you be looking for? Because you're starting to hear horror stories of bookkeepers who steal money or who don't do things correctly, and you really want to make sure you get somebody good. And number three, understanding, which is once you have your statements, whether you do it yourself or whether someone else gives them to you, what does it mean? And how can you actually use that in your business to make better decisions? Each of these stages comes with different struggles and questions, and I can help you with all three. Also, if you're stuck and you just don't even know where to begin, you don't even know what stage you're in, you have this massive bookkeeping problem that you just can't get off your mind, I can help you with that as well. We can create an actionable, manageable plan for you to catch up on your bookkeeping, and I can show you how not to fall behind again, whether that's you doing it or outsourcing it to somebody else. So to book one of these sessions, email me at lydia@dacbalance.com to be sure that we are a good fit to work together, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled. Now on with the show. You've started a home-based service business, and you have found that running a business is harder than it looks and more overwhelming than you ever thought it would be. This podcast is the best of the best information that I've learned to help grow and sustain my business. Listen, subscribe, and follow along. We can avoid the overwhelm and start creating a business we love to run. Well, happy summer, everybody. It's officially summertime, and if you haven't listened before, my name is Lydia Miller, and I am the host of this podcast, and I so look forward to doing this because this is where I can share my knowledge about bookkeeping and how it can affect you and your business. For just a little bit of background, I have been a bookkeeper for over 5 years, and I started my own business about 3 years ago to help small businesses just like you, and then last year, I completed my MBA. Because I really wanted to dive deeper into business generally and things that make, just different aspects of it that I didn't necessarily get in my accounting undergrad. And I absolutely loved the program. And so now my main focus is helping business owners to know what to do, the DIY stage, how to outsource their bookkeeping. That's one of the first things that business owners do is outsource, and understanding. And that's the biggest piece, is just understanding what your numbers mean, knowing what you should be doing with them, and making a more profitable business so that you can create a life that you love instead of your business running you. So that's a little bit about me, and I am so excited for this episode because this is where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck after they get caught up in QuickBooks, and you don't know what to do once you've reconciled your books. And most people, once they get caught up in QuickBooks, they just think that they're done at that point, and they run their reports even though they might not be accurate, or they start looking for other things in their business to do, but they're really not done yet. They really have a few more steps after they're done reconciling to make sure that they're getting the best information for their business. So in the last episode, we talked about what to do to get caught up in QuickBooks, and make sure you go back and listen to that episode if you haven't yet. And the main step was reconciling your bank accounts. That's really the most important aspect if you want to get caught up in QuickBooks. So if you've reconciled, that means that you've gathered your bank statements and gone to the reconcile function in QuickBooks or whatever program that you're using, and you've marked off all of the income and expenses that cleared the bank that month. And the difference was 0. That means you're reconciled. Once you do this for each bank account, credit card, PayPal, whatever other method that you use to collect money, you have to reconcile each and every one of them. Then you may wonder, what do I do next? Well, I have 5 things for you to do once you've reconciled your bank account. So number 1, run a profit and loss statement to see where you are. Now, your profit and loss statement or your income it's called a profit and loss in QuickBooks. It's going to show you all of the income that your business brought in and all of the expenses that were paid out in your business. It always shows the income first and then the expenses second. And so you can look at all of your income and say, especially if you have multiple streams of income, you can look at it and say, okay, how much did I make doing services last month? How much did I make selling this product? How much did this specific product sell? And how much money did I make? And you can look at each line, and if you've tracked things correctly, you can know exactly how much income you brought in for each of those lines. The next section is going to be your expenses. You can look at all of your expenses to see where you spent money last month. So if you, let's say, bought a coaching session with somebody, it'll show up there. If you spent money on technology, it'll show up there. If you bought a new computer, it'll show up there. Whatever money that you spent in your business is going to show up in that section, except for a few things that are going to be on a different statement, but don't worry about that right now. And then at the bottom, it'll show your net income. So your net income is your income minus your expenses is your net income, also known as the profit that you made. So at the bottom, if that's a negative number, well, that means that you spent more than you brought in. But if it's a positive number, that means that you did not spend more than you brought in. So you made more money than you spent, which is the goal, where you want to be. So just run a profit and loss and just see where you were last month. See how much money that was brought in. That's going to be really important for you to keep track of, because if consistently you're not making a profit, there's a problem. We need to figure out what the problem is and how to solve it so that you can become profitable. The next thing that you want to do, number 2, is look at the detail in each account. And by account, I mean the individual lines on the profit and loss. So like the revenue lines, if it's revenue from coaching services, that's a line in each account. And if you're in QuickBooks, well, all you have to do to look at the detail is to double click on that number, and it should pull up all of the detail for what makes up that number. So if there's $10,000 in there and you had 5 $2,000 transactions, it'll list out all the transactions once you double click on that number so that you can see what went into it. It's also important to look at the last several months for that as well. You can change the dates at the top. I like to look at the last 3 months to make sure that I was consistent in my selection of the accounts and to spot things that are out of place. So this is going to be especially important for your expenses. So if you go down and if you're looking at subscriptions and you see that maybe you put subscriptions for, like Dubsado or something for 2 months in there. And then on the third month, you put the Dubsado subscription fee into another account. That's a no-no. You want to make sure that you're being very consistent with what you're doing. So that's an easy way to spot things that are out of place. And that's going to be really important whenever you're looking at your accounts to make sure that all those numbers are accurate. So what I like to do is just go through each and every account. I know it's a little time consuming, but it's going to be important. I like to go through each account and look and see what was in there, what made it up, especially if there's one that's really high or really low, because then you can see, oh, I put revenue in that expense account, it doesn't go there. Or I put an expense in a revenue account, that doesn't go there. It's easy to see things that way. Like I said, that's going to be a little time consuming on your end, but if you're doing your books yourself, you really want to make sure that you're double checking, because if you do that consistently, you're not going to have a mess at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter when you're looking back and realizing, oh my gosh, everything's out of place, or even worse, everything's just in miscellaneous, which means that you really haven't done a whole lot. So you really want to make sure that there's not a whole lot in miscellaneous and that everything else is in an actual account in QuickBooks. So number 3, you want to run a balance sheet. And here's what a balance sheet is, because I think a lot of people understand the profit and loss pretty well, but the balance sheet gets a little bit tricky. So the balance sheet will show you at the top your assets, and then it shows your liabilities, and then it shows your equity in your company. So your assets are going to be things like your cash, your accounts receivable, your inventory, things like that are going to be assets in your business, things that you can use and like liquefy and to turn into cash. That's what your assets are, things that you, for the most part, own in your business. The next section is going to be your liabilities. So if you have a credit card debt, the credit card debt will show up there. If you have a loan, a personal loan for your business, that is going to show up on that account in that section right there. So your liabilities. And the last one is your owner's equity. Now that's going to show things like retained earnings, which is your profit. It'll also show things like owner's pay or owner's contributions to your business. That gets fairly technical because depending on what type of business you have, it gets a little different. Like, don't worry about that. Don't let that hinder you from, looking at that. Just focus on the top two sections, your assets and your liabilities, specifically your cash, your accounts receivable, and your debt. So your cash, you want to make sure that you're looking at your cash accounts to see how much you had at the end of the last month. And especially it's especially true if you are using something like a profit first method where you have, 5 different bank accounts, just to see where you're at in each account, and just to see how much money you have and to make sure that that's growing, especially if you've set a cash goal for like a saving, or if you're saving up for a new computer, or if you're saving up for equipment or something like that. Those cash accounts are going to show you how close you're getting to that goal. And then for your accounts receivable, you want to look at that to see how much people owe you. So if you have a lot of money in receivables at the end of each month, you want to see if you can decrease that each month to where you really don't have a lot, because you want people to pay you. You want that to move into your cash account. So it might mean that if you have a lot of receivables, that starting on the 15th, you start sending out reminders, or you start sending out just any type of a quick, hey, like, don't forget to pay your invoice, or you can even do discounts for people if they pay early, things like that. There's all kinds of ways that you can get people to pay you faster, but you don't want a ton of money in your receivables. And then debt under liabilities. The goal is to pay off your debt. You don't want to keep a lot of debt in your business because it's just really, really risky. It's risky, and this is especially true if you are kind of month to month at this point, to where you are using debt to finance your business. So if you have a negative in your on your profit and loss at the bottom every month, and you're using your credit card to cover for that, that's a huge red flag that there are problems going on in your business because you're not making enough to cover your expenses. And so there's a lot of reasons why that we could get into that in a strategy session for sure. But if you are racking up a lot of debt in your business, that is a problem, and you want to solve that problem. So just look at those things, and like I said, for the profit and loss, what I like to do is to compare these to the last 3 months and see the progress that you're making. So if consistently over the last 3 months your cash is increasing, fantastic. If it's decreasing, why? Did you purchase something? Do you remember doing something? Are you just spending mindlessly? Why is your cash decreasing? For your accounts receivable, if it's pretty steady, you might be okay. If it's increasing, you want to get people to pay you. And if it's decreasing, that's great, because that means there's more cash in your pockets. Or it could mean that you're not billing out as much as you should. So just keep a few of those things in mind. And then for your debt, as long as your debt's going down each month and you have a plan to pay it off, that's great. But if you are just increasing your debt every single month, that is a problem. We don't want to do that. So that was the next thing. That was number 3, run a balance sheet, look at your cash, your receivables, and your debt. So number 4, after reviewing it all, see how much profit you made. This goes back to your income statement. That's that number at the bottom. We talked about profit a few minutes ago, and you want to ask yourself a few questions about the profit in your business, because this is the money that you can take home. This is, you're still going to pay yourself at the end of the day, hopefully, but the profit that you make is really going to help you move the business forward if you're trying to invest more in your business, or if you want to take some of that cash home to spend it on your family. So, number 1, are you hitting your profit goal? Do you have a profit goal? Are you putting money aside? Are you in budget? If you created a budget for your business to where you thought, I should be making X amount of profit each month, like an actual number, are you in budget? And the next question would be, if you didn't hit it, what went wrong? Like, why are you spending more? Why aren't you bringing in enough income? What's going on? And then my favorite question, what's working? So if your profit is more than you expected, what's working? Is there a program that is just doing phenomenally well? Or are people really resonating with your message about a bookkeep or like a strategy session or something like that? What's working in your business? And do more of that. Do more of those things that are working so that your profit can increase every month. And the last question I would ask is, can I cut anything out or can I add anything? So if you're looking at your profit and you're thinking, gosh, I wish I had more. What can you cut out? What is not necessary? What is just okay, but not great, but you could live without it? Like, what can you just cut from your business to increase your profit? Because that's going to be really important for the long-term role of your business. And number 5, just basically don't think you're done once you've reconciled. So if your bookkeeper is reconciling and double checking, then it's your job as the CEO to make sure that you're looking at your numbers and making better decisions, or that you're sitting with someone who can help you do those things. So this is still going to be important for you to do most of these things, even if somebody else is handling the bookkeeping and the reconciling for you. And if you are still not sure what to do with each of these things, like I said at the beginning, I would love to help you in a strategy session to understand these things, to make better decisions, and to figure out how can we become more profitable? How can you become a more profitable business? Because the profit that you make is going to make other things in your life happen and be really, really exciting, but it's hard to do that if you don't have any profit in your business at all. So I would be honored to work with you with this area. This is one of the things that I love doing, especially when my clients bring me questions of why don't I have enough cash and why are we spending more here and how can we do this better? This is my jam. I love helping people with these things. I got tongue-tied. So to get started working with me, you can email me at lydia@dacbalance.com with the problem that you're having, and we can discuss the best way to get to a solution through a strategy call. So next week, I will be sharing another episode in this series. Let me get the title for you. I should have had that on hand. It's how to manage your own bookkeeping. So if you're definitely in the DIY phase and you just want to know how to manage it all because it's just a lot of work, that is a great episode for you. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that you will be notified when the next episode drops. And if you're enjoying this podcast and this series, I would be honored if you would leave a review for me. It's really important for podcasts to have reviews, and even if you just click the stars in there, because that helps more people see the show, and it's really important. So if you go to your app, especially in iTunes, and there's the stars, you can click the 5-star if you would like to, or just leave a review for me of things that you would like to see in the podcast and reasons why you love it and why you keep listening. I would love to connect with you there. And I would also love to connect with you on Instagram. So my Instagram is at lydia.miller.mba. And as always, you can email me lydia@dacbalance.com. So until next time, go and make it happen.